And here we are with a special guest that's come down to visit us at GLR. It's Fraser from Signatrak. He's here to go over the development of the ACE, which we have sitting in front of us, firmware releases, that sort of thing, and maybe even a little talk about some of the products that are going to be coming or are going to be reworked in the future. So Fraser, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me down, Stephen. Hello, everybody. Some of you may well have met me already, but yes, I am the man behind the ACE. It's all my fault, I'm afraid. So, yeah, it's coming on a pace now, I'm pleased to say. The ACE3 that's been eagerly awaited, and in particular the version 1.4 as it's going to be, the latest software update. As I know you're all chomping at the bit to get hold of that now, and it is quite exciting because it gives quite a few extra features.
What sort of features have we got coming in this update?
So, okay, route setting is one of the big ones, which I think is going to be popular, and we've got a variable current limit of so the overload trip point is going to be variable. So anyone with a small layout, an N-gauge layout, for example, you're not going to be committed to having the full 6 amps going through your locomotive wheels if you run through points the wrong way. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
For a full list of these features, do have a look on our website, because at the moment we have them listed as the known features, but I think Fraser may have snuck in 1 or 2 extra things as he's been working. So we'll wait to see the release version of that. And if you've seen the website, you may have noticed that there are 2 versions going to be released of the firmware, the blue version and the red version. And this is just due to a slight change in hardware internally in another in the next batch. There is no obsolete technology or anything involved. It is basically a slightly different version of the processor, am I right?
That's right, yeah. I'm glad you've raised that actually, Stephen, because I'm sure a lot of you are asking, why has this new version taken so long? It's no exaggeration to say I've had probably 3 times the number of challenges that I anticipated. But what I have had to do is change the actual microcomputer chip in the unit. The microchip manufacturers are very good at moving forwards and bringing out new technology, which is all well and good, but it does mean that for a developer like myself, all of a sudden you're faced with having to make some software changes that were unanticipated. And the original microcomputer that I was using in the ACE2 and the first versions, I think it's about the first 100 or so units, isn't it,
yes.
Stephen? First 120 or so units.
Correct.
That processor, that microcomputer, is more expensive. So I'm using a new chip now, which ironically is both cheaper but also more sophisticated. That's great news, but I've found that once I started using it, yes, there are quite a few changes from the original chip I was using. And that's the reason the development of this latest version of software has taken so long. But we're getting very close now.
Yes, quite exciting that I've sat down with Fraser over the last few days and been looking at the actual source code, isn't it?
That's right.
Of the firmware,
yeah.
And can appreciate just wow, what a big task it is to create not only the firmware but then to update and keep going with the changes in hardware available as well. So yeah, it's getting very close now, and I think it's going to be version 1.4, not version 1.37, I think was what we originally put on the website.
That's right, it is version 1.4, 1.40, yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you that have already got an ACE, you will have the red version of the ACE, and that update, that one is actually extremely close now, isn't it, to being there. And indeed, we've been testing it out as a not for release version yet, but as the distributor, we've been testing it out.
That's exactly what we've got in here, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's great. We've been demoing it at shows, showing the route setting mode and some of the other features that are already on there. So keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on our news channels for that. For those of you that will be getting an ACE in the near future, it's likely you'll be getting the blue version. None of the blue versions are out yet because these have the different processor in, and that's what we're waiting for the firmware. So you won't actually have an initial update to do. You will be preloaded with version 1.4, and then be looking at future updates as they come along, which I understand there's also future updates planned, some quite exciting ones involving computer control.
Yes, that's right. That's going to be the next thing on the wish list. Really, is to get the computer control rolled out. And if there are any of you watching who have got an ACE2 who would like the computer control, you may well have given up waiting for it, and I do apologise for the delay, but the computer control is actually being developed on the ACE2, and then it's going to be ported across to the ACE3.
Yes.
So ACE2 users, I promise, you have not been forgotten.
Well, we have actually been demonstrating at a few shows recently with our Signatrak demo board, the ACE2 connected to our laptop with iTrain on it, and have actually been controlling the trains and the accessories using the ACE as the interface, which has been really exciting to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's right. So at the moment, the ACE2 has if you like, a subset of the computer control commands in there. So as Stephen says, it is possible to drive trains and switch accessories with it, but that's as far as it's got at the moment.
Yes, and of course, once we start going into that area, there's the thing that people will probably want to be interested in is feedback and sensors of how, obviously computer control is great, but more often than not you want a bit of detect trains as well. And we were lucky enough to see a bit of hardware to try out actually in that area as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so hot on the heels of the computer control will be the Links interface, which is a box which sits under the ACE and connects via this options port, and that is going to give both ExpressNet and LocoNet interfaces. So those of you who use, for example, a DTM30, SIG-M20 boards, DAC22s, you'll probably be familiar with the LocoNet networking system, which is Digitrax's brainchild. So we've got development license for that, and all that equipment will be talking to each other. Anyone who may be familiar with Lens equipment or Roco, you'll probably be aware that that uses the ExpressNet network, and that will also plug into the ACE Links interface. So if you, for example, you've got a Lens or a Roco handset, you'll be able to use that with the ACE.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that gives just so many more options, and finally in this sort of like ACE family of things that we're going to talk about in this is we've also been trying out the panel options for the walkabout handset. So you can get a cable as long as you want for the handset, but one of the things that you've also developed is the ability to have panels around your layout and then link them back to the ACE so that you can plug in round your layout as you wish. Rather than having a long cable, you just plug in locally to where you are, and that's something that is also almost in parallel with a lot of these things going on we're looking at.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, we've been talking at the last few minutes about the very sophisticated stuff. If that has left anyone bamboozled, don't worry, because you'll probably like the basic driver handsets that we supply as an option for the ACE. You'll probably enjoy the simplicity of those.
I do.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and so do I. I mean, that's been retained, but as Stephen's just said, with the additional feature of being able to unplug them, walk around your layout, and plug into another panel on the side of your layout. So a bit of extra functionality there, without losing the simplistic elegance of the existing driver handset.
Sure, that's great. So just moving on to briefly then looking at one or two other products. Obviously we've had the DAC22, that's been reworked, it's great, it's now all micro components and has been improved in certain areas by yourself, and that is now out and available. The SIG-M20 for the signal controller. For those who don't know, it's you can control up to 8 3-aspect signals, or 2-aspect, or 6 4-aspect signals from one board, with the option of add-ons to give you more. It's also LoConnect enabled as well, and really quite sophisticated what you can set up on it with Local Analyze, the software to set it up with. But I understand that you're also looking at reworking that now.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's all about bringing the LoConnect boards into the 21st century. I mean, they were originally designed over 20 years ago. We've got there with the DAC22. So when I say bring it into the 21st century, I mean replacing the traditional old-fashioned now leaded components with what are known as surface mount devices. That means that the boards lend themselves to subcontractor factory production, which relieves us of time because we don't have to assemble them ourselves. That's where we've got with the DAC22, and you'll have noticed that there's a neat plastic cover over most of the parts as well. Mm-hmm. So the SIG M20 is going to be released as the SIG M22, and it's going to be similarly modern surface mount components with a plastic cover over. Functionality will be pretty much the same. Then I'm wanting to do that as well with the DTM30 Tower Master. But yeah, it's a case of one stage at a time. We'll get there. But
yes, I mean we have put out a development plan of the immediate things that are going to be looked at in order. Obviously, anything could change. We've already looked at 1 or 2 other things that may slip in, which we won't mention just yet, but they may slip in ahead of other things. But they can only be good for what's going on with the product range. There is obviously a few other things we haven't mentioned, such as the IMP servo controller, which has gone very quiet on that, but that's because we've been focusing on things like this. And I know you've looked at an 8-port servo controller as well, similar to like a DAC22, but able to control servos. So there's a few of these things just sitting there, but the immediate thing is this, yes. And its first firmware update to bring out. And as Fraser said, the reason that it's taken this time is because we want to rigorously test this to make sure that any little bug that is there is not released, so people don't have a problem with the product. And I think everyone will be quite agreeing that they'd rather wait a bit longer and have a product that doesn't have an annoying problem with it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've got nothing to hide at the end of the day. As I say, this has been the update to the ACE3 has been much more challenging than I anticipated. So yeah, it's now about getting it right.
Yes.
Before it goes out to the door. And I think it's probably worth mentioning as well, I'm sure you'll agree, Stephen, we've talked about all these exciting developments and new products, but we're firmly placing the priority on the ACE, and I think that's a win-win situation because firstly, from our perspective, from our business perspective, it's our flagship product.
Yes.
So it enables our business to move forward, but also from a user's perspective as well. I think this is where most of the excitement is out in the marketplace, and the majority of you guys out there are probably more interested in the ACE development than you are with the development of the other accessory products.
Yes. Some of the things we will do, when the update is available to release, there'll be a video to go with that, showing probably me updating my own ACE. Just even though there'll be a guide with the update and everything else, sometimes it's nice just to see it, like I've done with some of the ACE guides that I've already done on different screens on there. And then once that first update is out, which I think we'll both breathe a sigh of relief.
Absolutely.
Then we'll look at these other things as well. And of course, the updates, certainly the improvements in way things operate, all come from the end user. So if you have any thoughts on what you'd like this to do different, even if it's just down to a colour of something, the way something looks, that sort of thing, please feel free to suggest it, or if you want to, go to your local retailer, because we do have over, I think it's over a dozen retailers now around the UK that actually sell the ACE as well. So if you want to see it, go in and have a look and tell them.
I know that's already happened, which is great, because I've been to one of the more prolific retailers recently, and their personnel were able to give me some valuable feedback, which I know has come from some of you out there. So yeah, by all means, keep it coming. We're not going to incorporate everybody's ideas. I think that goes without saying. But yeah, it's if we get sufficient interest in a particular feature, or sufficient, constructive feedback on something which perhaps isn't quite operating as you feel it ought to, then yeah, we're very receptive to hearing all of that.
Brilliant. I think that pretty much covers a whole range of things, really, doesn't it? But I think that covers most of the things that we want to talk about the ACE, the update. And the main thing is just keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on our social media channels, or even just give us a call. But it's going to be very, very soon that the update for the ACE drops. And then we'll be on to the new things. So Fraser, thanks very much for coming down. It's been great to see you again.
No, it's a pleasure, and likewise. And I mean, one of the, I think I mentioned to you before, one of the little frustrations I've got is that a lot of the time I'm working not in isolation. I mean, obviously we're in touch with each other, but I'm working by myself. But the bits of brainstorming we've been able to have over these 2 days have been invaluable.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've both seen it. It really has pushed things forward. So yeah, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Stay tuned.